do the work.
Sorry, I wasn't recording the meeting. I just started it.
The people I've contracted to do the work, not only were not able to get the work done, but were actually not licensed by the state. I don't know if your records show that I had hired Evan Wilmarth of Dover Land Surveying to design a system. That system was then presented to the Dover Land Conservation Commission without my knowledge, without my being notified. My neighbor, who was a realtor who's gone, may she rest in peace, Betsy Bresner, was at the meetings and asked me why I wasn't there. And I said I was never notified by either the Dover Land Conservation Commission, nor was I notified by my contractor, Evan Wilmarth, that there was a meeting. They subsequently failed his design. And then we found out very shortly thereafter, within not even 30 days, that he was not licensed by the state. And he was on the Dover list of companies that one should approach to get work done on their property. And I can see that his name is not there now. Fast forward to Michael Angeri, and working with him, he suggested I get another engineering firm and utilize Evan Wilmarth's initial design to try to move forward. I tried to engage American Engineering, and I have a copy of a letter that I sent to Michael Angeri at the time. They sent me a proposal, but they emphatically refused to send me references. And they basically said, he has no time to provide with references. I can see that American Engineering, now this week called Legacy Engineering, is no longer on your list. So twice I have been bamboozled, if you will, by, in one case, an engineer who wasn't licensed by the state. How many of the septic systems in Title V acceptances Evan Wilmarth may have gotten through the Board of Health here in Dover is anybody's guess. You may know, I don't know. But I'd like to get this addressed, but I'd certainly like to get it addressed by an engineering firm first that is licensed and has had experience working with Dover to get this work done. Now, just backing up a little bit, I've been a resident of Dover for 23 years. My taxes have always been paid in advance. And I'm an upright citizen. You can Google me if you really want to know who I am. I can well afford to spend the ridiculous amount of money that it's going to cost to get this system either repaired or replaced. But I'm not going to do it with an engineering firm that A, isn't licensed, and B, doesn't have experience with the town of Dover, and C, absolutely positively must provide references to me, stating, after having gone through all this, that they've actually gotten work done here and have satisfied customers. So you've got a list right now that I've gotten from your office dated 2/28/2023 of Dover Board of Health licensed septic installers and haulers. All obviously some are haulers, not design engineer firms. And if you give me a shorter list of people to call, I'll go down that path, but I want to make sure that I've got somebody who's referenceable and is licensed to get the work done. Thank you.
Thoughts from the board?
Mr. Lax, that's very cogent, but I'm just wondering why you didn't at least reach out to us earlier in writing saying just that.
I have a letter copied here. Thursday, April 18th, 2019. To Mr. Angeri, never got a response.
What about?
It may be in your file.
But we've been trying to reach out to you recently, and haven't heard from you until now.
I was waiting to be invited to a meeting. I didn't want to do this by mail. I've already sent a letter off. It wasn't responded to. I've already tried to engage with engineering firms that didn't want to provide references to me. I'm delighted and thankful that you invited me to your meeting. Here I am. Hi
Well,
there.
You are the person who's responsible for reaching out to us. We did reach out to you because you didn't respond to us. And
Here's a letter
I'm
not
sure
responded to by your previous agent.
So I want to say also about the list, we are not allowed to make a recommendation about one person on that list versus another, where it's the homeowner's responsibility to go through the list and select a contractor. If you want
I
to.
beg your pardon. I
if you-
beg your pardon.
Wait,
I beg your pardon. If you're
let
going to
me
publish a
finish.
list,
Excuse me,
you have to make sure that the people on that list actually are licensed.
So, to the best of our knowledge, the people on the list are licensed. If you want advice about who to use for a septic system, one strategy would be to contact neighbors or friends who have recently installed systems in Dover and get advice from them. But we cannot give you specific advice other than to give you the names of people who are licensed in Dover.
Is it public information as to who has had septic systems repaired or installed in this town, so I can go through that list? I don't have neighbors or friends who have recently had septic systems done. So
Well,
I need to get somebody who actually is licensed and has performed the work to your satisfaction. And that's what I'm seeking in this meeting.
So I think that certainly our meetings are in the public record, and at our meetings, we talk about the systems that have been approved in town. So it's certainly, I think we could help him get addresses of properties that have recently had systems installed, right?
Yeah, it's all public record. He's free to look.
Where would that information be? When you say it's public record, the ether is pretty big.
At the health office.
I'm sorry?
Down at the health office at the townhouse.
Okay, so you actually have a list of everybody who has had their systems approved, and also who the engineering firms are that they utilized for that work?
Well, so
That's
we have a
public
list.
record.
We have a list of all our septic permits. So anything that's come through as far as septic applications, we'd be able to pull up each one.
And I'm allowed to look at that and
Yeah,
actually
so-
get the names of the companies?
Yeah, it's all public record. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, then I can come into the office and actually go through that list and put together the list of also the homeowners, reach out to those homeowners and find out if they did a satisfactory job for their work.
I
Yes,
think
sir. If you so choose.
That would be the way I would go about doing this. And I did reach out, and here's a copy of the letter that I sent that was never responded to by your previous agent. And you know, I've tried this now twice. Happy to do this a third time. Now that you've given me a pathway to go about getting reputable, licensed engineering firms, and then I can seek out their references directly from the homeowners here in Dover.
So how much time do you need for all this realistically? When can we expect to have your septic system upgraded?
Well, I don't know how long it's going to take to get an engineering firm to do the work with your assistance, but I will come in this week to get the list of engineering firms that you have worked with and approve their work, and then I will make phone calls to get reference or call them to find out if they're willing to do the work, and then call people on references and get the engineering work going. But the engineering work has got to be completed. The Dover Conservation Commission, I'm told, has to approve this before it's even submitted to you. And that process, I don't know how long that takes. That's just the engineering work. That's before the work is even going to be led to a contractor to do the actual work. You can tell me, because I haven't done this before. I tried. How long does it normally take once an engineering plan is approved by the Dover Conservation Commission? Is it the very next month that the Board of Health approves that plan, and then the contractor then goes about getting the work done?
Yeah, it all depends on various factors at play. It all depends on timing, but ideally what would happen is, once the plan is designed and once you get conservation approval, it would then come to me for approval and then would go on our health agenda for approval from the board.
And then we're subject to getting the actual system installed.
Yep, correct.
Right. So if I come in this week, I can start the process of trying to get an engineering firm that is both licensed as well as one that has had work done with in front of approval by you.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's the plan of action that I will take, and I hope that's satisfactory to you.
So, do we want to put, I do think it's challenging to say, yes, the whole thing will be done in X number of weeks or months. It's because there are so many variables. Do you think, Jason and Steve, that we should be setting expectations about the next couple of steps and then set expectations after that for the next step?
Well, so just if I could just jump in quick. So the first letter I sent to Mr. Lax personally in July gave him 90 days to upgrade his septic system. And we're already 2 months into it. So technically he has 30 days. So now that he's here before us, we kind of have an opportunity to come up with something more definitive. He's here, he's at least making some form of effort. So if we can all come up with a definitive timeline and hold this gentleman to it, that's kind of the goal at this point.
I don't know if a 90-day time period is possible. The system that Evan Wilmarth designed, I don't know if you took a look at the file, but that was summarily declined by the Conservation Commission. I don't know the specifics of that because I wouldn't know how to read the specifics of that. But you're asking me to hire a new engineer. They have to come out and do the work. They'll hopefully utilize some of the work that's already been done and utilize your good offices. But that still has to go in front of the Conservation Commission and get approval before it can be submitted to you. And I can't start work until after it's been approved by you. So if that's 90 days, I'll do it in a week if I can get it done in a week. But, I don't know if that process is doable here in town.
I mean, in fairness, you had 10 years plus the 90 days.
In fairness, as I've already explained to you, I've hired one engineer, tried to hire another engineer, and have had no luck in doing so. You do provide the benefit of publishing a list.
Yeah.
I don't know off that list how many of those people actually do business in the town of Dover, but I've tried. And honestly, spent thousands and thousands of dollars already with this effort and have had not had success. So it's not like this is a first time around. I'm not a homeowner who hasn't paid over $200,000, over $400,000 in taxes here in town since I've lived here for 23 years. I've spent time, effort, and money on this, but every time I've tried, I've met up with an engineer that's been substandard or not even licensed. So, and again, going back to Evan Wilmarth, I don't know how many of his designs were approved by the town board of health that where he wasn't licensed. Luckily, my effort was stopped. Not luckily, but luckily by the town conservation commission before I had his design, which wasn't licensed, installed, and then I'd be in a situation where I'd have a substandard system that bamboozled both myself as well as the town of Dover.
By the way, do you recall about when that was that Evan Wilmarth gave you that plan and that
2013, I can give you the exact date. I have the file. You also have the file in your files.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can confirm there is a plan in the file from 2013.
Okay.
I have all that information.
Well, we appreciate how complicated this process is and that you've encountered some pretty significant obstacles along the way. We want to be very clear with you that if you encounter any obstacles going forward, that it is your responsibility to come to us and talk to us about it and ask us questions, ask for advice, ask for our support when we can give it, but not to. And
I've done that.
I know you've done that.
I've done that, ma'am. Ma'am,
Don't interrupt me.
I've done my job. I've done my side.
Your job is
Yes, I
not.
have.
Well, we expect you to get back to us if you encounter roadblocks.
And I do expect that if I send a letter to the agent, that I can read you the letter. I'm sure it's in your file. It's responded to. So I appreciate being invited to this meeting. I appreciate that I'll start this process all over again and spend thousands of dollars to get this work done. But I'm an upstanding citizen. I pay a lot of taxes, and I know what my responsibility is. Now I'm letting you know that I expect there's a responsibility on your end with respect to dealing with me. And if I send a letter to your offices, I do expect it to be responded to. Thank you.
So do we want to talk about a time frame for the next step?
Jason?
Well, how soon can you get it done, Mr. Lax? Is by year's end a reasonable time frame for you?
That's I can't answer that. I can say that I will come into the office by year's end. I certainly will have the engineering work done, because I have to first find an engineering firm. That's going to take me the month of September. Then I have to contract one, get that work done. That work put in front of the Conservation Commission, if you just look at your calendar, is October, November. So it's not going to be till December till a engineering firm, if the Conservation Commission approves that, you're going to have an engineering firm, or rather an engineering plan approved by both the Conservation Commission and Board of Health. I mean, you tell me. I haven't done this before. I've tried, but it sounds to me like it's before the end of the year just to get the engineering plan done and through the processes here in Dover before I can let the contractor get the work done.
I was thinking by year's end to have it installed.
Well, good luck. Money's not going to be the impediment here. I can tell you that. The issue is whether or not I can get an engineering plan done. Have you had a plan with no engineering plan done where it has to be approved by the Conservation Commission and the Board of Health and installed in 90 days? Has that happened?
That I don't know. I'm sure it's happened. Yeah.
I'd place a side bet to say it hasn't happened in this town. I don't know how much work you've done since you've been on board with the Conservation Commission, but that process is one process, and then you got a Board of Health process, which is another. But if I can't get the work done by the year end, it's not going to be because if I can't get the work done by year end, my expectation is because it's going to be held up by the town of Dover.
So I would like to propose that, Jason, we work on a discussion with the Concom, and that we develop a sense of what we think is realistic, a realistic expectation about getting this project done, which might, it may be influenced by the time of year or what the workload is, but I think the Concom could give us some realistic sense about how much.
This is the Dover Board of Health, so you tell me, how long does this process normally take from when somebody hasn't even hired an engineering firm?
Without certitude, I would say that 4 months is not an unreasonable.
4 months. 4 months, okay. Well, that's beyond December 31. Well, I'm committed to getting an engineering firm in place, committing to the process to get that engineering plan supported by Mr. Belmonte, and then getting that in front of both the Dover Conservation Commission and the Dover Board of Health. And hopefully that'll be done before year end. And then as soon as that is done, hopefully before then, I'll have lined up a contractor to do the work. Don't know what their lead time is, but you're supposing that I own a contracting firm and I own an engineering firm, and I don't own either. So we're still subject to both the engineering firm. The last time I tried this to get a second engineering firm, I went through 7 of them. I've got copies of all my notes that they weren't even taking. They didn't even have time to do new designs, and
So-
American wouldn't even give me references. So
Mr. Lax, you have many reasons for not having achieved this so far. And you may be able to find many more reasons going forward, but it's not your responsibility is, despite what the roadblocks, to get your system upgraded. And we're going to hold you accountable for that. We'll work on setting a timeline or a deadline for completion of the project after we confer with the Conservation Commission and think a little bit more. But and we'll try to give you a little bit of wiggle room, but we're not going to allow you to go beyond the deadline.
If that's
Well, because
meant to be,
wait, no, I'm almost.
pardon me,
Stop.
if that's meant to be a
It's
threat,
interrupting. It's
then
not
I
a
think
threat.
this meeting
I'm
is
gonna
now
leave-
over, and I have to get my
Relax.
lawyers involved with this conversation.
Mr. Lax, what I'm saying is that you are responsible for getting your system upgraded. You have to do it. It's we can't allow it to continue.
Ma'am, I think I've shown that I've been trying to get that done. You've got copies of engineering plans. I've shown this, but if you're going to go down the path of threatening me, then this meeting is now complete, and then I will have to have my lawyers contact you, and we'll go down that path. If you want to work with me in a reasonable thing, nobody here can give me a timeline, and you guys are the professionals. I'm not. Nobody here can give me a timeline. I'll say that a third time. Nobody here right now can give me a timeline. I will come into the office this week. I will get copies of people who have done engineering work in the town of Dover. I will contact them. I will get references. I will endeavor to get an engineering firm in place before the end of the month. That work will get done as soon as that firm can get it done. Then it has to be put in front of you, the Conservation Committee, and then your Board of Health. That work has to be done. We're still subject to the work that has to be complete. You can't give me a timeline, and you're the experts. I don't know what I'm doing. I've tried it twice. I've failed twice. And if I'm going to be given a deadline and we're going to go down that avenue of threats, then all bets are off, and I'll get my lawyers involved, and
So-
that's where we'll go.
we are giving you a timeline. We're going to think about, we have given you a timeline, I should say, and we're going to think about whether that should be a little bit more generous than it is, but we're not.
I'm sorry, what timeline have you given me?
By year's end.
Okay, if you can show me that anybody has done this without hiring an engineering firm, since I don't hear anybody on here sharing with me timelines that have been done, that you can get this done October, November, December in 3 months and 2 weeks. That's 100 days.
Mr. Lax, it's not our responsibility.
I'll pay for all the septic systems for the next 30 years. But you haven't had that done. You can't show me a timeline, and I will do the best I can. And again, if we're going down the path of threats, then I'll have to get my lawyers involved and you'll have to deal with them. Okay? I'm going to do the work. I've already spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to get this work done. So, and thank you very much for inviting me to a meeting. I haven't been invited to a meeting before. I've been ignored.
You're welcome to come to any of our meetings anytime. You don't need an invitation. So we'll see you in the office later this week, and Jason, we can talk more about how much time to allot for this project.
I think the right avenue to take, my suggestion, is to work with me and to work with me with all deliberate speed to help me get this work done. And we'll get the work done as quickly as we can when we can get it done. The money's not the problem here. Even if I have to hire Boeing or Lockheed to get the work done, which I presume is what you need to now have to get done to get these septic systems done in the state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But I'm going to work on this with all deliberate speed now that I have your attention face to face, and I can get a proper engineering firm on the program.
Steve or Jason, you have any more questions, comments?
No, let's proceed as currently stated.
As currently stated, meaning?
Mr. Lax will be in the office this week.
Okay. Jason, anything else from you?
Why don't we at least move this topic to a future agenda so we can reassess and see where we stand on things? Since if we're not going to set a definitive deadline. Why don't we kick it to October and get an update 4 weeks from now and see where we stand?
Okay, and then with the idea being that we might define a definitive deadline by then and have that.
Yep.
To discuss it.
If Mr. Lax works with us, obviously we're more than willing to work with him. So as long as he's staying in communication and working with us, then we can make this work.
Sounds good. Any further comments from you, Mr. Lax?
No, I will be in the office this week to work your files and see if I can pull together some engineering firms that are off your list and work to get the references and get that completed as soon as possible. Hopefully, some of those engineering firms are interested in work right now. I don't know if you've been doing any work in the world, but both contractors and engineering firms, everybody seems to be backed up these days. Hopefully, I'll be able to find somebody who wants to take on this project.
So just so you know, there are some engineering firms that do a lot of work in Dover and some that do a little bit. And you'll
that's exactly what I was asking for. I want the guys who know how to do business and know how to do work in Dover.
Yes, and listen, Mr. Lax, stop by the office, and I'm happy to go over that with you.
That's exactly what I need.
Yep. Yeah, we can do that.
Because I don't want to be wasting time. And again, my apologies for wasting the Board of Health's time, but I've gone down the path with 2 engineering firms. One was unlicensed. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars with them, And then the other one wouldn't even bother giving me references, and they were listed as a firm that had done a lot of work here in Dover. They're not on your list anymore.
Yep.
And I want to get a firm that does get the work done. Can't get the contracting work done until you get an engineering plan that's approved by all of you. And that's what I
Yeah,
want to get done.
Listen, you're here now. The past is the past. We can only control from September 11th, 2023 on. So work with me. I'll work with you and we'll get this figured out. Okay.
Very well. I will do so.
Okay, thank you. for
Any other
taking-
questions of me?
No,
No, we'll
we-
see you sometime this week and we'll have you on the agenda for October for an update.
we
I'll be
really
in Wednesday
appreciate-
morning.
we appreciate your coming to the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you
Have a
for
good
inviting
evening.
me.
Take care. Okay, so we move on to
Yeah, let's get to Dave while he's on. Thanks for hanging on there, Dave.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
so 6 Meadowbrook, right?
Yep, let me share my screen. All right, so we got a septic approval for 6 Meadowbrook Road. These folks were here, I believe it was last month. This is the one, the property had always previously been considered unbuildable. Soil tested out there. Soil test passed, no issues there. Yes, bedrock was a little on the higher side, but technically it did pass. So these folks got back to me with a septic plan. So I've already gone through this and done my technical approval. Can see I stamped it today, actually. Proposing sorry about that. 2,000 gallon microfast septic tank to a D box and 5-bed design, no garbage grinder. They will need to get a deed restriction. For new construction, you technically do have to design to be able to accommodate a garbage grinder. In this case, I would assume their thought process is they probably don't want to go too much bigger with the leaching area because it could increase the opportunity to run into some more ledge.
So you're saying that a garbage grinder is required in new construction, so am I correct?
Yeah, and if they don't, they have to get a deed restriction.
Okay,
The
Yep.
plans are required, but that they are entitled to a deed restriction.
Yep, correct. So I don't have a lot of concerns with this plan. There's actually not even a need for it to be a fast system. This particular system is designed for enhanced nitrogen removal. I'm not exactly sure why they did it in this case, Dave. I don't know if you know it. It certainly can't hurt. It's just not required. It's not a nitrogen sensitive area. You can see it is close to a wetlands area, but even that wouldn't trigger that. I don't know. Do you know, Dave?
I believe we did it so that we could have a 5-bedroom versus a 4.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's not a nitrogen sensitive lot, so it wouldn't make a difference. I don't know if that matters to you at this point. I did talk to GLM. I did reach out just to kind of say, hey, is this a nitrogen sensitive area? And I'm just missing it, but they confirmed it was not. So
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'd just like to get this approved, and then if we want to.
yeah, no, it is what it is at this point. It can't
Yeah.
hurt. You're getting extra nitrogen removal here, so you will need an operation and maintenance agreement. So I'll need a copy of that prior to giving final, sign off once this sucker is hopefully installed and approved.
Yeah.
Now if the board recalls, the one big thing with this, you can see my my note here with the star. So when they dig out this leaching area, I've requested I need to be out there, and the engineer also needs to be out there to verify that there is indeed 4 feet of suitable material there. If you recall, the way I kind of explained it last time is, we may go through all of this, give approval, come time to dig out the leaching area. One half of the field could be completely fine, and the other half could be ledge within 2.5 feet. We really don't know. The soil testing is just a snapshot. Technically, it passed. You can see of the 4 test pits here. This particular one, I just noted it was a fail. We hit bedrock within 32 inches. So there is areas of this lot where that's a real concern.
Dave?
Yeah, there's a whole outcropping towards the property line to the right rear of where the structure is proposed.
Dave, do you or the owner have any objections to Jason being present while this is done?
No,
Great.
Dave, you technically are the owner, aren't you?
I am. Well, I'm not. I will be. We go to purchase and sale
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Gotcha. Yeah, so as far as I know, I wouldn't imagine anything's been submitted as far as building plans or anything of that nature yet, just because you guys don't know if this is actually gonna move forward. It has the approval from the technical standpoint, but we may not actually know what the leaching area looks like until it's actually dug out. So
I think we may have talked about this last time and I've forgotten the answer, but is there a technology that can be applied to evaluating the depth of the bedrock in a non-invasive way with is it called LIDAR, a radar variant? It's a technique that's used in archaeologic investigations, and is it ever used in this kind of situation?
not that I know of. I mean, truthfully, it's going to be eyeball test and tape measures.
Yeah.
That's all we can do, really. Yeah, so I guess we'll see. The one thing I do want to point out, and I don't know if you guys have already gone through this, Dave, but I don't ever like to step on conservation's toes. There is wetlands in the area. I don't know if you need to touch base with them first before we move forward on any further excavation at the site or anything. Just something I wanted to point out. I made note of it on
Yeah,
the plan here.
I'm well aware of it. I've been down that road
Okay.
many times.
Board have any questions or concerns on the plan?
No, I move that we accept it.
Second. All in favor?
Great,
Aye,
excellent.
Kay Peterson.
Stephen Kruskal.
Dave, is Scott, I assume it's Scott Septic doing it?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know what the time frame is on this now, just as far as starting things there, but if it's Rob doing the work, he can kind of just, make sure to coordinate that with me and Chris, if he's going to be the one, Chris from GLM, if he's going to be the one kind of overseeing this. I know Rob did the design, so however you want to coordinate that, just keep me
Okay.
posted.
Yep. Okay. Sounds great.
All right. Good
Okay.
on that. Thank you, Dave.
Have a good night.
You too. All right, we want to jump back to minutes.
Yeah.
Although Priscilla's not here, but
Priscilla's not here. So the minutes from June 5th, we've already reviewed once, and I took our comments such as they were and gave them to Linda, and she revised her initial draft. So what's here is pretty well edited. So I think it would be easy to approve those. Steve, do you have any suggestions for changes for June 5th?
yeah, and if there is anything major, I know it's kind of a big ask to throw 3 sets of minutes at you guys. So If you prefer to just, go through and share any edits with Priscilla or myself, we can kind of do it that way if it's easier.
Well, let's try to do June 5th, because June 5th
Is an
is
old one.
should be all set to go.
Yep.
No objections.
Okay. So I move that we approve the minutes of June 5th, 2023.
Second,
All in favor? I, Kay Peterson.
Stephen Prescott.
Okay. So I would like to discuss the general, go ahead, Steve.
There were some action items that emanated out of those minutes that I'm not aware of the progress of those. And they are not on the agenda. At least one or two are not on the agenda.
I think one of them is the getting the minutes, getting the meeting recording posted, right?
That was one issue, the access to both the public and members of the board to recordings.
That issue, so what we have to do is to figure out how to post them on the town's YouTube channel. And I haven't done that yet, so I was actually thinking of asking Priscilla if she could do the legwork for that, either Priscilla or Linda.
Priscilla would be the perfect candidate for the job. That's right in her wheelhouse.
Sorry, a big tree just came down right outside. I'll be right back.
Is Kay in Maine?
No, she's home, but hopefully.
Are we having a significant amount of wind right currently?
Not that I know of.
I'm not hearing it.
Yeah, I know I'm a little further away from you guys, but nothing.
Sorry.
Everything okay?
I think so. I can't see it. It didn't hit the house anyway. Geez, it's really loud. I forgot what I was saying. Okay, so, you were saying that it would be a good thing to have Priscilla do. So, Steve, is that what you have in mind, getting them on the town's YouTube channel?
I would like a form of access for both the public.
Say that again.
I would like a easy form, seamless form of access for both the public and the individual members of the board, as well as personnel.
So that would be the equivalent of what's done with the Board of Selectmen's meetings. Is that okay with you? If I'm assuming that we can get permission to do that, that there's not going to be any
And I
objection.
believe Priscilla has figured out how to access a fair amount of this already. So she's the ideal person to be given this project.
Yeah. But I guess I just want to confirm that you would view the equivalent of what's being done for the Board of Selectmen as adequate for us too.
It's good enough for them.
Now, I guess the only question is, do we want to backtrack and do as many previous meetings as we can, or just are we
I
drawing a
thought-
line in the sand and going from here forward?
No, I think we should have access to as far back as we can. We certainly should have had something for 2019 to see if Mike and Jerry mentioned anything to us, at least during that.
I have I'm just guessing, but I have the feeling it's going to be very easy to upload them. That it's just based on something I looked up about this, that the hurdle right now is having the ability to upload to the town's YouTube channel. But assuming that we get approval for that, I think technically it's a piece of cake. But famous last words, but. So I think maybe we could start with the present moment and work backwards.
Yeah, I'll talk to Priscilla about it, and I don't think it's something we need approval for. I don't see why we couldn't.
Right. Well, I don't know unless there's some technical problem. We'll have to find out.
I could at the very least ask Michael, town administrator, and just get his blessing.
Mona may know, actually.
I'm on it.
Okay, was there another, you said there were two action items that weren't,
The recourse to the Amelia Peabody Foundation and Dover Neighborhood Fund regarding funds for further COVID testing. We've had a number of requests for COVID test kits. And even though the government has given up funding them, they can still be funded at a local level and be provided to citizenry. And I would have hoped, given the number of requests that we've had, that we'd be able to accede to some of those requests and satisfy our citizens. So far, we don't have any.
so, today, somebody, involved in the shared services program said that there is possibly some hope that some leftover, COVID funds could be used for that. She's going to, she put it on her to-do list to check for us. So that's one hopeful alternative.
But there are at least two funds that are very concerned about local benevolence, and those two that were cited in the minutes. And we should reach out to them at least to establish a line of communication that we haven't had for a few years, and perhaps if they might be interested. The Dover Neighborhood Fund might be interested in that sort of thing. And Amelia Peabody Foundation just has a very deep pocket.
Mhm.
This wouldn't amount to more than a few $1,000s worth of cost, I think, for at least a couple months. Clearly, the increase in COVID at-home testing has occurred. I'm not sure how much difficulty citizens are having in finding tests that they're comfortable with at the local pharmacies. But if we were to order in bulk and just not be profligate in our distribution, we should have some for a couple months, hopefully.
So
Yeah, I can, I've been kind of putting out the feelers, but casually, but, if you guys think this is a priority, which I do think it is, because it's, I don't know, it feels like it's starting to rear its ugly head again, so I'd like to get out in front of it and at the very least get our hands on more of these test kits. So I'm happy to explore some more avenues and see what we can figure out.
Good.
Okay. I assume the Amelia Peabody Foundation has a website, Steve, and that's probably the best way to find them.
Well, then, even a phone call might be worth it, but I'd put it on record. Accessing them through their website, which they do have.
Okay. All right, can we go back to talking about minutes? I want to talk about the process of minutes. I'd like to propose that we try to figure out a way other than our Board of Health meetings to go through the minutia of the minutes. And let me toss out an idea and let's see what you think. So let's say that Priscilla types up first draft of the meeting minutes. She could then send it out by email to each of us individually, and we could each send her back some comments, some edits. And if those were non-controversial and easy, period here, semicolon there, you misspelled my name, then she could just make them. If there was any controversy, let's say Steve and I disagreed about
Use of semicolon versus a colon.
so that's exactly right. But you could easily imagine happening, can't you, Steve? We're only halfway laughing, Jason.
No, I've witnessed it. I've been there. I've seen it.
Then Jason could adjudicate. And then he could say, okay, Priscilla, the semicolon goes here. on the next draft, on the draft that then gets presented before the meeting. And then a final draft gets presented to the, or put in the folder that we all review before the meeting. And then presumably all the mundane stuff has been taken care of, and all that's left that's controversial in the document is the semicolon or whatever it is. Does that make sense? What do you, is that a model we could try? It's a way of trying to shorten our meetings.
Yeah, so just like, I guess to summarize everything you just said, Kay, you could in theory, essentially 100% approve these behind the scenes or get them finalized, and then, reserve the meeting time for just a formal approval, which there should be no discussion on it other than just approving them if everything's already taken care of. You know what I mean?
Yep. Unless there was something like none of us could, we aren't remembering things the same way or whatever it could be, that, and that's substantive and should be discussed in the meeting.
With access to YouTube recordings, it would facilitate that.
Mhm.
Oh, you mean we
If
as,
we had our own
yeah,
personal access to YouTube recordings of the minutes, and we therefore know what was said, and
Yeah.
that's a lot
Yeah.
more difference to
that's
what
right.
we're claiming was said.
Yes. The semicolon was there. I know it. Okay, all right. So we'll try that.
So any discussion on the July 10th or August 14th minutes, or what do you want to do with those? What you just described?
I want to do what we just described.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Will you explain this to Priscilla or should I?
No, I can talk to her tomorrow.
Great.
You guys will have some homework for the next meeting, though. Hope that's okay.
All right. I think we can handle it.
Okay.
All right, the Legion. Want to talk about the Legion?
Yes, I'd love to. I did invite Tom McGill. I believe he's a field hockey coach at the school, so he was unable to make it tonight. But I did receive just today, and you guys are already aware that the Legion was interested in expanding their food operation. They do currently hold a food license, but it really only covers them for catered type functions only. But the direction they want to go in now is more of a takeout type operation with limited seating. Just sandwiches, chips, basic type things.
Did they want a tobacco license?
No, thankfully, no, they don't. But I did receive an application from them today. We don't have a formal application for plan review, as most other towns do, so I kind of had to create something on the fly to give to them.
Do you mean an application for food establishments?
Well, no, we have that, but just technically they already hold a license, so they're not applying for a food license. They're applying for a revision.
I see. So we lack a form for that.
Yeah, but basically, just to summarize, they fill out the application. They send us a copy of their proposed menu, any specifications for new equipment, floor plans, and whatever else we may ask of them. So they sent all that to me today. Steve?
We don't hold them to what's on the proposed menu, do we?
Not necessarily, no. It's just to get an idea of what they're going to be serving and kind of what they're going to be doing in terms of preparation. So no. But so I guess where we're at is, I thought originally maybe they were going to have some issues with zoning. And disclaimer too, by the way, I don't want to speak for zoning or building because, we're not that department. We don't have jurisdiction there. But it sounds like as long as they're still operating under the guise of the Legion, that they should be able to do this. Now, the only kind of two hangups on our end is they don't have a grease trap. One of the things that they want to do as part of this whole ordeal is use a fryolator. And we also don't know what their septic system is designed for. The reason that's important is because, you know, we need to know that in order to be able to determine what they can actually accommodate as far as seating.
We have to hold them to the same standard as other current, or at least as other establishments have been held. If they're going to expand
Right.
in direction.
Yep. Yeah, like I mean, Dover Deli, just to give another example, it's not an exact comp, but as you know, we don't have very many other comps in town. So they have a system designed for 20 seats, which is about what they have in there when, you know, when they're actually open. They have a 1,000-gallon grease trap. So they're covered on all those fronts. Dunkin' Donuts does not have a grease trap, but also they're really not doing much in the way of grease producing. And as far as I know, their system is designed for about 15 seats, which is about what they have set up in there.
So they don't actually make the donuts there. The donuts are brought in, they're imported from somewhere else.
Yeah, that's typical of most every Dunkin' Donuts. I'm sure there's still a few mom and pop ones out there. I don't know, somewhere in Connecticut that they still make them fresh, but most of them get them delivered. And for the most part, everything else they get is frozen. It's just, you know, they heat it up in a little turbo oven or things of that nature. So grease is very minimal.
Now, you
Okay.
mentioned the fryolator and as a way of saying that they're going to be generating a decent amount of grease.
I'm going to share screen with you guys just so I can show you their menu. Just so we can. Just to get an idea of what they're serving. So this was the menu they sent me. So as I described, very basic. Burgers, hot dogs, pulled pork, meatball sub, BLT, chicken salad, chips. I actually don't see French fries unless I'm blind. But you can see here, the floor plans they gave me were a little hard to make out, but there is a fryer here in the corner. They are alluding to a grease trap here, meaning their plan is to put like a grease interceptor on their sink, which is an okay supplement, I guess. It's better than nothing, but it really doesn't replace an external grease trap, if that makes sense.
Is an external grease trap attached to the D box?
Yeah, it's attached to the septic tank, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything written regarding the regulations in town regarding the presence of grease traps?
No. And to be honest, Title V is a little vague about it. It basically says restaurants or schools or any food service that are going to be, it doesn't say substantial grease producing, but it says something of that nature, or excessive grease producing. So you could make a case, as long as they're really limiting it, that they could get away without it. Now, I think in this case, a grease interceptor under the sink could maybe be a suitable replacement, but I think there's still the question of the septic system itself. It's almost 40 years old. We don't know what the design is. I think at minimum, they're going to have to get a Title V inspection. and prove to us that this system's actually working, because they've never had a system inspection done. And to take it a step further, like I've said a few times, we don't know what this system is designed for, so we really don't know what we can approve in terms of seats. So my recommendation here would be that they're legitimately going to have to hire an engineer or somebody a lot smarter than I am to actually calculate what their flow is. So we can actually figure out a number. Now, they're not proposing much. I think 15, 20 seats is what they wrote on their application.
Jason, how are you going to figure out what the system is designed for, though? I mean, even if you have an engineer who determines flow, that doesn't tell you what's in the ground, right?
Well, so it's a tank to a D box to 2 leaching pits, so they could potentially figure out what the capacity is of those 2 pits and calculate it that way. It doesn't have to be perfect or exact, but it at least needs to be something we can work off of. Steve?
Have you searched our records to see if there's anything there regarding what they have?
I have, yeah. It's all we have is a piece of paper with a sketch on it. There's nothing else. It's not a stamp plan or anything. It's just a sketch.
Back of a napkin kind of thing.
It's not that bad. I mean, I've certainly seen that, but no, it's not much to go off of, which is unfortunate because it would be a whole lot easier if we
Well, they
had more info.
clearly need a Title V inspection.
Yeah, which I wish he was here tonight so we could discuss it. That's the only thing I think they may give pushback on, which is concerning because it would lead me to believe maybe there's an issue that they're aware of that's being avoided, and I'm not, that's just where my head goes.
I assume they're gonna have a bathroom facility within the food establishment where people can repair to while dining.
Yes, yep.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
the increased use is pretty dramatic potentially. They really need a Title V inspection.
yeah, I think so. I'm pretty adamant on that. Like above all else, I think that's the very least they should be doing. Any thoughts, Kay?
This actually isn't, I don't think this should be a factor in the thinking about a grease trap, but is it, how much effort does it take and how much expense to install a grease trap in an existing septic tank?
That's a good question. At minimum, they need 1,000-gallon tank. So to excavate and do all that install and everything, I don't know a number, but I'm sure it's not cheap.
But we don't even know if they have a 1,000-gallon tank.
Right, the Title V will tell us that, right?
Well, I mean, I at least know what's there. I know they have a septic tank, a D box, and 2 leach pits. They definitely don't have a grease trap.
You know that from the sketch, right?
Yes. Yep.
But you don't know the size of the tank.
No, which again is another issue. Someone needs to figure out what we can give these folks, because if they're not willing to get it figured out, then they're not going to be able to have any seats. It's just going to have to be takeout only.
Yeah. I don't see an argument for saying no grease trap, and doing this, what is it that's called on that sketch? The grease at the sink, the device at the sink.
Oh, yeah, the grease interceptor.
Grease interceptor. I mean, if we say that this is acceptable here, then it's conceivable that we would be establishing a precedent for other establishments, and it just doesn't seem like the right way to be going in terms of making sure that we're protecting
Yeah.
public health.
They
Yeah, I
should-
mean, you could also say, no, you can't use a fryer. If you want French fries, you're gonna have to cook it in something else, some Turbo Chef oven or something electric maybe.
Now, that's an
That's a
interesting.
workaround.
But again, they should be held to the same standard that Dover Deli was. And that wasn't so long ago.
Well, would that be holding them to a
As far as
different?
having a grease trap and
S-
size capacity.
Say it again, Steve.
As far as having the seating capacity and the size of the grease trap, the same standard should be applied that was applied for Dover Deli at a minimum.
Except that if the Legion isn't frying anything, then it's more analogous to Dunkin', I guess, right?
Yeah, so Dunkin's doesn't have one, and they have a pretty old system. I think theirs is even older than the Legion's is.
But we know they don't fry.
Well, the
Correct.
problem with that particular property before Duncan came in was there was initiative to have a pizza establishment there, and the grease trap was the sticking point in terms of doing that.
Right.
So that's why Duncan came in rather than Domino's.
Makes sense, yeah, because the pizza place would have had no choice but to walk away if they weren't willing to put a grease trap. So that's probably what happened.
But don't you think, Steve, it would be acceptable if the Legion said we're not going to fry anything? Be acceptable for them not to have a grease trap?
Yes, but then they'd have to apply again to us rather than go ahead on their own, were they to start frying. They could not and would not be expected to go ahead without returning to us and saying, this is what we're going to do. What do we
Right.
need to do to comply?
Right. But they could make that decision. They could say, well, we really don't think we're going to want to fry, and we don't want to deal with a grease trap. So we'll proceed and we'll take our chances. And if we just change our minds, then we'll come back to the Board of Health. Or they could say, we really want to fry, and we'll
Yeah, and
proceed.
honestly, they'll, if they go against whatever agreement we come to and they, end up frying like crazy with no grease trap, that's only going to hurt them. They will ruin their septic system, and then it'll lead to a quicker need for an upgrade for them. So it's in their best interest, regardless, to limit the grease as much as possible. Because I have no idea what condition that system is in. So
Can I ask one more question? Very fundamental. So in the process of doing a Title V, there wouldn't be enough digging done to allow installation of a grease trap if the tank was discovered to be big enough for it. Do you follow me? Is there any chance that
also the grease trap would be a totally separate component.
yeah, but in the process of doing a Title V, you're not digging out enough of the tank that you could also install a grease trap at that time.
I mean, I guess in theory they could, if they apply to install one and pay to have one installed, then I guess, yeah, they could.
I mean, is there a savings? And I'm just trying to see if it's more efficient to.
I think another thing too is, are they really going to add to a 40-year-old septic system? I don't know. Just
Yeah,
if you're going to do it, wouldn't you just do the whole thing?
yeah.
Just, I don't know, just my thought.
They could have it pumped every few months.
Well, yeah, I mean, not to go back to that one, but I've seen it where there's been restaurants or establishments where they're pumping it 2-3 times a week when it's failed, just
Wow.
because of how much flow it's getting.
Well, we're not encouraging that.
No, heck no. But yeah, so I guess to summarize, they need a Title V. They need someone to figure out what the flow is, and I guess whatever your guys' thoughts are on the grease situation.
Well, again, we've set up sort of some parameters regarding the grease. If they don't fry, we're not gonna hold them
Right.
having a grease trap or. But the question I also have as a corollary to this is that we've been extending them temporary permits. And at some point, that has some issues.
Jason,
So-
you were gonna ask somebody about that at the state, I think, about how.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Steve. I was unsure of the answer, just so temporary foods are good for 14 days. So the agreement I kind of had with the Legion was because the whole idea was to do this temporary food thing for a few cycles, just to bridge the gap to the new operation. I don't know if you can just reapply forever, like a never ending cycle, because there's nothing that definitively says you can't do that. So I asked one of my contacts at State Food Safety, and I actually jumped on a Zoom meeting with them last Friday. And basically the gist of it, or the summary was, it's up to us how often or how long we're willing to keep it going. And go ahead, Steve.
Well, if that is the case, then we should set up a time frame at this point.
Yep.
And I think we ought to give them temporary permits adequate enough that they could, if necessary, install a new septic system. Such that they would not have to shut down. Which, according to a previous discussions this evening, should be by the end of the year. But they also have to get going on this to make that work. And when we send out any letters to them, they should be certified return receipt. And if we send them out any letters, we should certainly document the fact that we have done so.
Right.
With that. And I don't think that's unreasonable unless someone's going to tell us that you can't get a septic system done in that length of time. They certainly seem to be able to for new construction all the time lately.
Yeah, no, listen, I know he was kind of challenging us on specific examples, and obviously I don't know exact scenarios off the top of my head, but I mean, the one we just had, the 6 Meadowbrook, that was a very quick turnaround. I just soil tested there last month, and they're already about to get that installed,
Yeah.
so it does happen. So yeah, Title V inspection, and I guess go from there with those guys.
I think they should be noticed that we will extend them till the end of the year.
Yeah, and again, that's I don't know how long they're willing to stand out there in the elements and continue this grilling operation. I guess that's up to them.
Well, they're gonna have to move indoors.
There's no reason they can't, right? The temporary food permit isn't contingent on them being outdoors, is it?
That would be up to building and fire, I guess. We probably wouldn't have an issue with it on our end as long as they're compliant. I mean, Steve was there the day I did my inspection with those guys. I go through just as I would any other food establishment. Got to have this, and this. So yeah, that would be up to building and fire, and I can't speak for those guys, but
Well, they've already approved assemblies there of 40 or 50 people. I can't imagine they're gonna have issues.
right.
Okay, so just to be clear though, regarding the grease trap, that if they decide they're gonna use the Friolator, then we're gonna require a grease trap and not the grease interceptor down the road once their septic system is in place and so forth. Right, and we would not give them a temporary permit to fry until their septic system is resolved, right?
Yes,
All right, so Title V inspection, no fryer unless they're doing a grease trap.
Yep.
And you guys are on board with having someone figure out the seating capacity?
You mean a septic?
Yeah, and then an engineer will have to calculate the
yes,
capacity
you
for it.
obviously have to do that.
Yep.
All right, I'll let them know.
Is that the Title V inspector who'd be able to do that, or that would be a different person, right?
Not necessarily, but they could happen
Simultaneously.
simultaneously, yes. Like if you know, whoever the inspector is could coordinate with an engineer and they could go out there together and kind of figure it out that way.
Yep.
All right. Works for me.
Okay.
We're on the same page.
All right, are we done with that topic?
Yep.
If so, let's move on to flu clinic and also RSV vaccine, kind of related, but let's talk about flu clinic first. Jason met with Moji this week, right? Or last week? This week.
Well, last week, a few days ago. Yeah, not much of an update at this point. We're pretty much ready to go live with everything. We'll get the banner up, we'll get the flyers out. The ladies in the office are coordinating with John Quackenbush. He is the holder of the sign-up sheet, if you will. So if we'll be coordinating the call-in signups in the office. So in order to make that work, our list needs to be in sync with John's list just to make sure we're not, you know, double booking or overbooking. So
Isn't there a way that they can book people into John's schedule?
yeah, well, that's what I mean. Just making sure those are in sync.
Okay.
Just so we're not working off a different list.
Yep. Good.
And
Right.
John mentioned the RSV vaccine, so I threw it on the agenda, but it doesn't sound like that's really a feasible option. Steve?
Well, that's correct. And as recently as today's news, RSV hasn't been proven to be safe when administered with the others yet.
Gotcha.
But it's very clear after the vote today that we will have the COVID vaccine easily available by October.
That's great, and thanks for bringing that up, because that was the one big thing Moji mentioned last week was he wasn't sure about how available the COVID boosters were going to be, but it sounds like now that they will be available. So
The other issue about RSV vaccine is that at least right now, the CDC is recommending that people discuss the pros and cons with their personal physicians. And so it's not going to be as, I guess there'll be people who might have decided they want it, but I wouldn't want us to be in the position of having people come and hem and haw about whether they should have it because it's not so well known. Maybe that wouldn't be a risk, but anyway. So we'll definitely only do COVID and flu this year anyway. Anything else about this?
Jason and I already have had this discussion, but we need to have a line open to Denise Garlick such that what was published in one of her recent newsletters doesn't occur again, and that is the granting of the credit for the flu/COVID vaccine to the COA.
Oh, really?
exclusively in her newsletter.
Oh, really?
So she used to have an administrative assistant that we knew very well,
Yeah.
that Jason should reach out to and just ask her if should they publish anything further regarding health issues that involved over, that they check in with him before going to print.
You know what else we might do is start to push stuff to them,
Yes,
get on their dance card,
Mhm.
because they don't really know that we're here. I mean, they technically do, but I'm sure the COA is actively pushing stuff to them, so we got to compete with them.
Well,
Well, I
the
don't have to
COA is hosting the clinic after all, aren't they, Steve?
Maureen, wasn't her name Maureen?
yes. But those folks come and go. It may not be Maureen any longer.
Right, right. All right. Anything else about the clinic? The facilities, we have no particular issue with the facility at this moment, I take it.
No, I mean, you guys had a good template in place for last year, so we're just gonna work off of that. We'll have the drive-through, the walk-up. If it happens to be some sort of weather event like tonight, we can utilize one of the bays, so.
Good. Did Moji give you a figure for how many vaccinations he can handle an hour?
I think it's, I forget, I don't want to give the wrong number. I think he's
But
maybe
you did
40,
So he's probably gonna have what?
40 per pharmacist. Does that sound reasonable?
No, it doesn't.
I could have my math.
Anyway,
But we
but
did discuss it with him and we made note of it, so it's,
good. So it's in the works.
Yep.
All right. Steve, were you gonna say something?
Well, there's a topic that's on the emergent basis that we should bring up, just at least for the record, regarding the current boil water imposition that by Aquarian, that, and my concerns are that over the weekend, they provided drinking water to citizenry down by the highway department, and then today that was no longer the case, yet they still have a boil water order in place because of a glitch in the testing that occurred today. And in terms of reporting, or such that people are now going into tomorrow without having to and still having to procure drinking water to take their medications and what have you. Unless they can take them with milk.
yeah, just to add on, Steve, I was told that they were dropping off more water tonight at the highway department. They said around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Now, I don't have a confirmation that actually happened, but that's what Aquarian told me this afternoon. But yeah, that's
They've been pretty good regarding communication. One of the issues that has come up in the past is the use of the reverse 911. And in the past, that has been under the control of the police chief. And the police chief has his or her own discretion on whether to activate it. This was not the entire town that was affected. So I'm told, and this is maybe unreliable information, that the chief considered that notification but did not use it. Now he's leaving, and it's not much of a, it's not worth getting into any sort of great discussion regarding that, except as far as the future police chief goes, in terms of philosophically about when they might use that. And
most people got a call, as far as I know.
Someone will have a discussion regarding that.
Most residents got a call, as far as I know. I don't know if it came from Aquarian directly, or how it worked, but they did. John, who's the Aquarian president, mentioned the reverse 911 specifically. So somehow, some way it was utilized.
It
And
was to their
folks were
customers,
contacted. Yep.
but that may be well and good, but it might not have been sufficient.
Yeah, no, in fairness, I did hear from some residents today who didn't find out till late in the day on Saturday. They had no idea because they were never notified.
When did the reverse 911 call go out, do you know?
Saturday,
Sometime Friday,
Right.
because
Oh, so
Yep.
then there are people who just didn't get it, who should have gotten a call. It wasn't as if it came late.
And I really think, given the nature of the call, that perhaps the entire citizenry should know about it. Just, for
yeah, I
any-
agree. Even if it doesn't affect you personally, every resident in Dover should know what's going on.
So we need to have that discussion for the next time.
Yeah, well, maybe myself and Kay or something can do what we did with the new town administrator, and once we have a new police chief on board, we can kind of meet with them and make sure we're on the same page with the same goals and initiatives and that type of thing, and that would be a great topic to discuss.
So I think it's related to the general topic of emergency management and.
Yeah,
and
that too. Yep.
Really been shut out of that, I think, by the current structure for emergency management, but there's so many different kinds of situations that the Board of Health ought to have input into, in terms of planning. And, this is the second time already since I've been on the Board of Health that the boil water orders have come up with Colonial or Aquarian. And it seems to me that this is a really important area for developing some sort of protocol for management with our input and others. All right. Last item on the agenda, public health nurse.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to give a quick update on this. Nothing major, but I just, now that we've hired Priscilla and have a full staff again, and now that the new town administrator's been on board a couple months, and there's also a new shared services manager, I would definitely like to rehash this and get going on this, whether it's with the shared services or independent or just us in Sherborne. I think we're kind of still open at this point. So that's kind of where we're at. I would definitely like to get that figured out sooner rather than later. I don't know if the board has any thoughts, or Steve.
In the minutes of 2 or 3 months ago, it was said that you would reach out to a selectman and possibly Carol Lisbon, who, for all intents and purposes, is a selectman, just to understand their thinking regarding the sharing of a nurse. I think that that's important for people who think a lot about the autonomy of the town.
Yeah, Kay and I met with Carol. I don't remember when that was exactly, but that was one of the topics we discussed, and it was something she was in support of
What?
of having the shared nurse position.
Shared by whom?
Us in Sherborne.
Okay. And did you get into the micromanaging part of it with her at all?
That I don't remember.
You
It must have been just after that meeting, so it was a few months ago. But we definitely did discuss it with her.
You mean, when you say the micromanaging part, you mean the working with the shared services grant program? Or
Or
what do you-
whether Carol was in favor of being done independently or with the shared services program, whether Carol was in favor of our employing this person rather than
Yep.
combined. I mean, there were a lot of issues that she could I'm sure give very good opinions about.
Yep.
We-
Also,
and
I
we
don't
got-
want to speak, I don't want to speak for you, Steve, but I think I know what your preference would be, right? It would be our own position.
It would be, because I think there's enough work for someone.
So the 25 hour we originally budgeted for.
So Steve, the concern that I think is probably pretty significant, is pretty important, is that from what I have heard, it's hard to hire a part-time nurse, and that if you have a full-time position, it's not just an issue of benefits, it's that people want to work full-time, and it's challenging to hire somebody if you've only got 25 hours a week.
Well, I'll accept that as certainly possible, maybe even gospel. So I just think the people, the select people that I've spoken to, really are concerned about having autonomy in town and having direct control of the people who work for the town in its various ways.
So the proposal for this position is that it would be housed at Dover. It would be, the person would be hired by Dover, paid by Dover,
Benefited.
would spend a certain number of hours. This is assuming we can put this all together, but the model would be that they would spend X number of hours in Sherburne.
If Sherburne's okay with that, I'd be okay with that, and so would, I suspect, the selectmen, however they're comprised.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not getting what the issue is.
The issue was having the program run by the shared service people. The issue would be the town to be able to say what it would like the nurse to do, and its town and its representatives out, such as us. And I'm always concerned that that might not end up being the case if we did not directly hire the person, paid the salary.
So, it turns out that Dover cannot use the shared services funds for its portion of this nurse, no matter what, because we already have the funds in the budget. And the shared services funds can't be used to supplant something that you're already paying for.
Yes, we've been over that, and I had forgotten
Well,
that.
And so what the proposal would be, again, this is all theoretical, if it were, then the one model would be the program, Dover houses the employee, hires and pays the employee, and then let's say there's 10 hours a week available for Sherburne, but it has to be done through the shared services grant. Then there would be an agreement in which Dover would invoice the shared services grant for, say, 10 hours a week of pay for this person, and this person would spend 10 hours a week in Sherburne, but that Sherburne piece of time could be tapped to be used for Medfield or Needham in an emergency.
Well, that's fine, as long as Dover has local control of this.
Yeah, Dover would have local control. But Sherburne would not. In the other model, which is that Sherburne pays Dover through an intermunicipal agreement, then Sherburne would have control over its 10 or 15 hours, whatever it had. But we would still, no matter what, we would have control over our 25 hours.
Okay. Are we at the point where we would be interviewing people and advertising for same?
Not until we know what we're doing definitively. Just in terms of, is it just Dover, is it Dover Sherburne, or is it all part of the? shared services. I think that's what we still need to figure out.
So we have some more communication with Sherburne about what they, how they want to proceed. That's kind of the next step.
Okay,
All right, we'll try to have a lot more information by next time. I think it's really important that we get going on this.
Yeah, the point was, and we don't have to decide anything tonight. I wanted it to be known that this is gonna be rehashed and, we're gonna get this figured out. Steve,
so I've got one more if we want to move beyond this one.
sure?
And that is the availability for over-the-counter purchase of Narcan and how we might at least put a bulletin in various places telling our population that that indeed is the case. I just viewed a video this morning that was in the New York Times article regarding this, that's really as simple as it can get. So I don't think we necessarily have to have an educational program. It's just have to have a reference to that type of video in our publications. But I think we should publicize the fact that Narcan is now available over the counter and people can have it in their homes or cars or wherever they want to have it. And certainly it's, while the price is daunting for some portion of the population, for our population, the price for the 2 ampules that it comes in is not daunting.
So what is the price, Steve?
$45.
So, just to be clear, Steve, are you in favor of getting our hands on it, or are you more so interested in just putting out informational material?
I'm
Okay.
interested in putting out informational
Okay,
material such that our population knows that why it's a good idea and that it's readily available.
we can do that. For sure.
It's a great idea. So it's now available OTC. It's happened.
I think so. I mean, we could recommend that our public facilities have it,
Mhm.
as we have with defibrillators or EpiPens.
All right, anything else before we adjourn?
Nope. We're breaking a record.
That's pretty good.
Now I have to go see where that tree fell down.
Yeah, good luck.
Uh, I don't want to know. All right, so we'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody.
All right, see you guys. Have a great night.
Like,